Quanna. Welcome back to my channel. And I'm here today with a quick little review of the book With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. If you saw my last video about struggling to get through some books and struggling to read, you'll note that this was one of the books I picked up from the library about a week and 3 or so days ago. So it's been about 9 days. I actually finished this book on Tuesday, but I just haven't had time to review it other than my review on Goodreads. So you can check me out. I'll post the link down below, and you can check out one of my first reviews on Goodreads. But this book was thoroughly enjoyable. I picked it up kind of as a contrast to On the Come Up, because On the Come Up was a book that I knew I was going to read and review specifically for the use of using it with my students in my Black Student Union as kind of maybe like a book club book. And so I had been checking out this book for a while now on Amazon and had read the blurbs about it, and I was like, oh wow, that sounds so much like Water for Chocolate, and I love that book, and I love anything that has to do with cooking. And back in the day when I still had the Food Network, I watched all the cooking programs, and now I just have to kind of wait for them to come on Hulu. So I knew immediately that this book was going to be right in my wheelhouse, and also I wanted something that felt a little bit more towards the romance, and I knew that there was going to be elements of romance in it, so I said, well, I'll give it a try. Now, in terms of my overall rating, and this is going to be my non-spoiler review of this, I'm going to put this right here. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Can you see it? Can you see it? Look at this cover. This cover is stunning, and whoever this young lady is, if they picked the model or if this was just someone that was conceptualized by the artist, she is serving it up. Anyway, so I love the cover of this. But in terms of my non-spoiler review on Goodreads, I've given this a 4 out of 5 stars. Because I don't know how to do half stars on Goodreads. There might be a way, I'm not sure. But I don't think there is. I think you just kind of have to give it a holistic grade. If I was going to rate it out of 5 stars for my own channel, I would probably give it closer to 3.5, because it was really enjoyable, but there were some things about the book that weren't problematic for me in terms of the use of that word problematic in today's society, but just some things from a stylistic point of view that kind of took me out of the text and made it difficult for me to get right into the text. And so it took me about 30 pages in to get into the book. And while I know that's kind of, that happens as par for the course in some ways, because it takes you a little while to get to know the characters. The problem is that the character's voice was a little off-putting in the first few chapters, and it took me a while to get past that. Those problems that I had in the first few chapters or the first 30 pages, they eventually did even out, and they weren't used quite so frequently, and so then I could get into the plot a little bit more. The other issue that I have is the ending feels really rushed. And so the book, just to kind of give you some context, the book is broken up into 3 parts. The first part is savory, I believe, and it's broken up into like food terms. So it's, oh no, sour. So the first part is the sour. Then the second part is the savory part. And then the last part is bittersweet, I believe. And the bittersweet section starts on page 363, and if you can see how small this is, so this is the ending of the book, and it feels very, very rushed. And I mean, like, character relationships that have been built up kind of just fizzle, and they don't go away. Like, you kind of are supposed to believe that these characters still exist somewhere out there in the universe, and they're still living their best life, but the way that they're wrapped up in the book, it just kind of fizzled out very quickly. We find out what's going to happen with the character, but we don't get to see anything else. Everything from, to me, in that last section is tell and not show, and the middle section is all show. Well, not all. There are parts where she's telling a lot. And so because there are so many relationship markers where they're just telling us things that happen instead of showing us those things, especially when they're significant things, that was kind of a bummer for me. But overall, it was still a good book, a very fun read, a very enjoyable read. And in fact, it was such a good read that I have been toying with the idea of using this with my ELL foundation class this year because a lot of times when we're using very heavy world literature, it can be very difficult to have students enjoy reading. And I thought that this would be much more of an enjoyable book for them. And I've been toying around with that notion and that idea that as a teacher, I really want to begin to sow into my students' lives the enjoyment of reading. And the reality is that a lot of times we read very high literary books, and while that's they're great, like I love those books personally, and as a voracious reader and as a very competent reader, I can read those books and can take them apart and dissect them in my mind. For many of our students, they've never been given that opportunity just to read books for pleasure. So I have been toying with the idea of contacting my principal to see if we can get some copies of this, or doing a donors choose. If I do a donors choose, I will post a video about it and put the information below so that we can get some classroom copies of this book. But I really thought this was enjoyable. The main character is Afro Latino, which also would work really well in my L population because most of those students will be Latino or Latinx or Afro Latina or Afro Latinx and Black, and some Asian. And I think that this will be a very relatable book for them. So that is my quick non-spoiler review of With the Fire on High. I do recommend it, and I hope that you enjoy it. If you have already read the book and want to hear my discussion of it, feel free to go over to the next video. Until next time, guys, toodles!